including when I was at the airport.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it happens. We had fun.
You say County Joe did, as soon as they opened it.
Oh, yeah. There's nobody in the airport in Cincinnati, actually. But Lion King was.
We ran into the LA Galaxy soccer team at the airport.
I saw that.
Logan's jaw just dropped. They were in line behind us. And of course I started talking to them and he was mortified. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna ask more of them. He's like, don't.
Are we all set? Didn't mean to bother you, Michelle. Just wanted to make sure you were.
I texted Art saying I was on my way.
Well, but except he's not here, obviously. So, all right. If we're all ready, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Loveland Board of Education to order, and ask, let's see, it's
6:04.
6:04, okay. And Mr. Hawley, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Jarvis?
He will be absent this evening.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes, here.
Ms. Pettit?
Here.
Mr. Fortune? Here. Mrs. Washburn?
Here. Thank you. And we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any changes from what we received?
There's a few HR items that were added to the attachment, those will be highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
We separated the discussion items just for clarity purposes. One of them seems to be more treasure oriented, so we moved it closer to those items so that for clarity. And I believe that we have at least one additional treasurer's resolution.
Yes, two additional, the state consents and the special needs resolution. And we'll talk about them in further detail.
Okay.
So those are on your agenda that are.
They are on the printed
These are on the printed agenda.
or just in board docs?
They're
Maybe?
probably just in board docs at this
Okay,
point.
super. All right. Are there any questions or concerns? If not, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move.
Second.
Ms. Pettit and Mr. Fortune, moved and seconded. Any questions? Can we vote on that?
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Fortune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes. Motion carried. I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. You seem far away from us. You are welcome to move up closer if you would like. And I would invite you all to rise and join with us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe the first item after the pledge is the hearing of the public. Oh, do we have any?
Yes, we do. Mr. Shoemaker?
Mr. Dave Shoemaker, would you come up and turn that microphone on so we have a... Is there anyone else, Mr. Hall, or just Mr. Shoemaker?
Just Mr. Shoemaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize for the package, but it's, the only thing I'm going to do is read the cover sheet text. And before I start that, though, I would like to just make reference to the attachments. You'll find attachments following the cover sheet. The first one is attachment SHU1. And all that is that's Loveland Board of Education meeting minutes for January of 2017. And I highlighted where I was speaking and made the proposal, which I'm sort of speaking about again tonight. See how that relates to the next page, which is SHU2. And this is the first reading of graduation requirement change that was read, I believe, on March of 2019, 3 months ago, something like that. And I call attention to what I've highlighted there, which is to choose option 1 or option 2. Actually, option 1 is what the previous page was about. And I was quite encouraged when I saw this until I saw that choose option 1 or option 2. So, but that's enough on that. SHU3 is the Loveland High School diploma. At the bottom is a copy of the diploma with the name removed and the signatures removed. And what's interesting is that diploma has been the same for some time, the words. And just the date and the official signatures has changed. But through the years, the graduation requirements have changed. So as you can see there, I have like 5 years there of classes. This shows the required Loveland credits, the state of Ohio credits for graduation, and the additional class hours is the number of additional hours that Loveland requires over the state minimum requirements. The next sheet, sheet 3, I'm sorry, that was sheet 3, wasn't it? I hope.
Yeah.
Sheet 4 is the actual copy of the Ohio school diploma. It gives all the details of it. I'm sure you're quite familiar with it. I wanted to just show that to you and show you that basically the Loveland requirement is the same as the Ohio requirement, which it has to be to some extent for the core, what they call content courses. And what's different is the elective, the quantity of electives. So, and then of course it has the assessment testing, which I'm really not talking about tonight. I think Loveland and Ohio agree on that. Maybe you don't agree, but at least you're both doing it. So, shoe 5 is a copy of the Loveland High School graduation requirements for the class of 2017. And in particular are the 3 boxes there. One is the minimum graduation requirements, which shows the breakdown with the 26 credits. The college prep program, 26 credits, but a little different requirement. And the Great Oaks Career Tech program, which is 21 credits with different requirements. So that's all I want to talk about on those. So I'll just go back, and all I'm going to do now is just read the front there, and then I'll be done. Let me tell you what I believe regarding Ohio's public school system and Loveland City School District. 1, I believe that the State of Ohio Department of Education, ODE, has done a fantastic job with the graduation requirements. ODE provides choice and the right amount of assessment to guarantee student success. Number 2, I believe that ODE allows the local school districts like Loveland latitude to enhance the educational experience above and beyond what ODE requires, but that the local school districts like Loveland at times fail to pass the same latitude on to their students. A case in point, Loveland's graduation requirements. Presently, Loveland requires all students to complete 26 credits for graduation. That's 2019, I guess 2020 will be 25. Even though ODE requires 20 credits. I've stated above that the ODE requirements are robust. In fact, they are the same requirements that I completed in 1968, but in my case, it was a college prep program, and our first 2 children completed, in essence, in 1993 and 95 at Loveland. All of us are college graduates. I believe that Loveland High School additional coursework beyond ODE requirements has no real education basis for, operative word here is all students, but is more of a perk for the stronger students, proved by the recent Loveland School Board decision to lower the requirements from the present 26 credits to 22 credits for the Loveland class of 2023 and beyond. Number 4, I believe that all Ohio school districts should offer a real choice for graduation. For weaker students, the ODE graduation requirements. For stronger students, the ODE requirements plus additional requirements like Loveland 26 or in the future 22. Ohio school districts like Loveland that don't offer the Ohio diploma choice are discriminating against their weaker students. Lakota and Little Miami students have a better chance of success. They do comply with the ODE graduation requirement and therefore in competition with Loveland students or whatever. Next, back of that page. Number 5, I believe that local school districts like Loveland the local school district like Loveland has the power to offer different programs of study with different graduation course credit requirements. I know of no Ohio law prohibiting the choice. Loveland presently has 2 programs of study with 2 sets of course credit requirements for graduation, Great Oaks and Loveland High School. I am led to believe that the Loveland diplomas given to both Great Oaks and Loveland High School students are identical in wording. I do know that the Loveland High School diploma is given to all of my children, 1993, 95, 2003, and 2005, have the same wording, but different graduation requirements. Adding an additional choice of the ODE Diploma Program of Study with its course requirements is within the Loveland Board of Education jurisdiction, in my opinion. There would be no required change to the diploma wording. My request of the Board of Education, please provide in writing the reasons behind the Loveland Board's decision for not offering the Ohio Diploma Program of Study when you did the change in policy in April, is what I'm referring to. Number 2, please provide in writing the reasons behind the additional requirement of 6 course credits and why the Loveland Board did not think this additional requirement would not jeopardize the weaker students' chances of success in a diploma. Please provide in writing the reasons behind the reduction in the course credit requirement for graduation from 26 credits to 22 credits. Thank you for your consideration. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Let me turn this on.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. I think that it will require, because we are in the summer months, may require a little bit of time to get the written answer back to you. And I just would make one comment. It's not in what you wrote, but I do believe that you said, when you mentioned that Lakota and Little Miami students have a better chance of success because Lakota and Little Miami are complying with the ODE graduation requirements. But of course, you know, as in the materials you gave us, Loveland is also complying with the ODE requirements because they state that you can have different. So just want to make sure that everyone understood that we're not out of compliance. So
No, I know that. I just mean the fact that you have additional requirements that you may lose some as a result of that.
Right. All right. Thank you. All right. We will then move into board reports, and those are reports that are in the board docs materials. And so we will move over those unless anybody has any questions on those reports and move into the items that come out of those reports. And the first discussion topic, it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, is the board committee meetings proposed schedule, which was in Dr. Krause's report and which you have then on board docs and on paper with all of the dates listed. Okay. Any questions or concerns or suggestions? I did have one question on the policy committee. It switches in 2020, and that may or may not be an issue for me, but was there a reason that it switched to Thursday instead of Tuesday? Is that a better?
Only because I was making it, no, I mean, I was trying to lead into board meetings so that we had time to.
Got it. Okay.
Comply, like, to get things ready for board meetings, but it can go to Tuesdays. Is Tuesday better for you?
It is, but we don't have to switch now. We can leave it there. That's far enough out there that I'll let.
It really was somewhat arbitrary.
Okay.
I really just would look at the week and go, Thursday looks better than Tuesday. So if they can go to Tuesdays.
If that's not a big deal.
It's not a problem for me at all.
It's because we're doing it at 8, and I'll be putting a kindergartner on the bus at 9, or a little before 9, so.
I'm putting one on too.
Well, then I'll bring mine to you. And
Yeah, we can move those to Tuesdays.
if that works with Mr. Portune, I didn't want to,
Oh, you can talk for me. That's fine.
No, I mean, if it works for you. If Thursdays are better for you, that's okay too.
They really were just arbitrarily looking at a week and.
Okay. Anything else?
Were we going to meet more frequently?
I don't know about that. My question was going to be, do you think that we need to meet once at the beginning of the school year as opposed to waiting till October?
Sure.
To make,
We could hear about the retreat and the goals and.
That request, possibly, maybe just to have a touch base early.
The principals will be presenting their school improvement plans and that to the board at the August meeting.
Okay.
15th, August 15th meeting.
Okay, then maybe not. Then October 1st is probably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, we can certainly try and put one on the calendar. Your call.
That's good.
Fine.
And we can, and we'll also want to revisit sort of the committees and how we're doing work after the bond in November. So we put the Building Tiger Nation Steering Committee on hiatus because we did all the work around master planning, but now that really just moves to then moves to campaign talk, so that has to happen outside school hours, so we put that on hiatus. So, does the Building Tiger Nation Steering Committee start to work on Portrait of a Tiger? Does that start to gather some more input and some more work that we move forward? That's worth talking about. And then once a bond is passed and we have an architect for building, there'll be a core facilities committee that meets regularly to work on the building project, and it is not unusual to have a board member serve on that. So those are some we may want to reshuffle the way we're doing business, because the business that we will be doing will be different. So these are fine and business planning for business as usual, but pending that, we may want to restructure the way we spend our time based on the work that we're doing. So I just put that out on your radar. So I'll move the policy meetings to Tuesdays and we'll get those published.
Did we want to make note, at least I know it's not a committee, but just make note of the date of Suzanne's communication work group? Just that we know, I think that's in August. Because that's good work.
We don't have dates planned out for the year.
That's fine.
So we have the next date.
So August 17th is the next.
I'm sorry, it's a Friday. And I just need to double check if it's the
16th.
The 16th.
16th.
August 16th is the next work session of the Communications Committee.
Communications
Work group.
Thank you.
Communications work group, thank you.
Is it like the opposite of a committee, a work group?
They actually do things.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I was just trying to be humorous there. Okay, if there's no other discussion about that, then we move into superintendent resolutions. But Amy, do you have any discussion before we move into those items, or do we go directly into those items? All right, and then we'll have others later. All right, so the first item under the superintendent resolutions is a resolution to approve school fees for 2019-2020. And I'll need a motion for that.
I move.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Pettit and Mr. Portune. Questions? I believe in the report that we had, it said that none of those are changing. Is that correct?
The
Am I wrong
general
with that?
fees for pre-K through 8 are staying the same as they have. The course fees, as a board, I don't believe you've typically seen them in this format. Typically, they have appeared in the course selection guide.
Right.
And so by approving the course selection guide, you sort of by default approve those. We felt like we needed to really tighten up that system and make sure that things were clear and make sure that you knew what you were approving, that things weren't coming in later. Not that anyone was trying to cheat the system, but just to improve that consistency.
Right.
So this is a procedure that we gathered from some other school districts for efficiency. So you see each of the courses listed with the fees that are established next to them. So now those are all in. Did you pay for it? Is that our?
I believe so.
Pay for it is our online system. So when you have your high school and you register for classes, classes have started, you get a bill that pulls in English 10, AP Lit, Honors, whichever one, and so those fees come to you based on your schedule. So one major change in fees that would not have been there before if you have had a recent high schooler or have a high schooler, is the AP test fee. In the past, we paid for our AP tests outside of school. AP has changed their rule. So now they require you to pay the testing fee in the fall when you enroll in the class and not wait to pay that testing fee separately. So we're passing that on initially because AP has changed that. That's not a change in our procedure. It's a change in our procedure precipitated by a change in AP procedure. So that is a new fee that would not have appeared within fees before. Parents would have paid for that outside. They were still paying the fee, it just wasn't appearing this way. But that's why that change is there.
So can you just remind me, because I know I always hear this from parents, we're all in the same boat spending money on supplies and folders. What do the fees go for in the pre-K through 8th grade? What does that cover?
The general fees would go for student consumables. So you would be looking at science supplies, you'd be looking at subscriptions to online programs. I'm going to date myself, but Weekly Reader. I don't think we use Weekly Reader anymore. I'm sure they're cooler.
I like the online version of it.
Yeah, they're cooler now, but those student consumables that they use.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, if there isn't anything else, can we vote on that, Mr. Hall?
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes. Motion carried. The next item is to approve school lunch prices for 2019-2020. And we need a motion for that.
Move.
Second.
Mr. Portune and Mrs. Washburn on that. Questions on that? And that states right in the resolution that there's no increase this year on the lunch prices.
I believe we increased those last year, so
Yeah.
we'll keep those stable.
I'm looking for John. Where did we kind of net out this year? Are we losing money?
We'll probably cover the
Kevin?
No, so we had a better year than we did the previous year. I'll get you that in just a second.
Choices.
Betterment.
So we netted out just about $60,000 this year, which is kind of where we've been in the past, but it was a little bit better than last year, just slightly better. So we'll see. I mean, you may still see similar language as we've had in the past couple of years, I believe, for a potential transfer, just to cover early year expenses.
Right.
But it looked better than it has in the past.
Anything else? All right, can we vote on that?
Yes. Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Motion carried. The next item is to approve the list of 2019 Loveland High School graduates.
Now they have their diplomas.
Second.
I have Mrs. Washburn and Ms. Pettit on that. I will just say, I mean, I understood the explanation that we got of moving it up to May. My understanding had been that we did it after the fact because there were sometimes issues that didn't allow us to have the exact list prior to graduation if someone was finishing a credit or if someone had something coming in from College Credit Plus or something.
We'll bring you those extra.
After.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to note that that was sort of why I had always been told that we did it after graduation.
And I try not to bring anything to the Board of Education that feels like a rubber stamp, but I can think of nothing more rubber stamp.
Well, yes.
Than for the graduates. And
Yes.
after you've already shaken their hands and they're not here anymore.
Okay,
So
any
I'd much
questions?
rather have you approve those beforehand, and the last minute ones that we get across the stage, we can bring those to you. And
We can have a meeting right there. and do it.
We're all there. Stage.
On the stage, yeah. All right, any questions? Mr. Hawley, can we vote on that?
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Motion carried. They're all officially graduated now. Phew.
Text Kaylin, let him know he's okay.
Okay, and then the next item is the memorandum of understanding for the City of Loveland for services of school resource officer. I'll go ahead and make that motion.
I'll second.
Now, any questions? You'll have the memorandum, and it is the exact same memorandum that we signed for the other
Exactly
one.
the same language, except for there's an addition in this MOU for a 3-year commitment from the city and from the school district. In order just to make sure that we protect staffing as they continue to add staff to support the request for SROs. St. Columban has also added a full-time SRO. I did clarify that MOU would be for, obviously the one for this campus, the LMS campus, but ultimately the language in the MOU reads that the chief of police can place that officer anywhere. So in the event we did have to pull back and not have the 2 full SROs, we could still place that SRO at the high school, even though that language is attached to this building, if that makes sense. So otherwise it reads exactly the same. Kevin and I worked through with the city, what seemed clear to us even last year. You live with it for a year, you're like, okay, that wasn't as clear. So we worked really hard with Mr. Kennedy to make sure that that's clear moving forward, to try to protect the district, beyond us when the same people aren't at the table, just to remember what it is that we meant, to be really clear, to not take advantage. As you recall, our plan was to make sure that we were splitting that 50-50 and to lay that out, so that whichever SRO was selected, we pay for 50% of that SRO. The MOU states that there will be 2 people from each entity to do the interviews. So there were 2 people from St. Columban here last week. I had Mr. Ogden and Mr. Collier do it from here, since that person would be here at this building, and that's who they would be working with. And then the chief of police sent 2 officers, 2 lieutenants that were not candidates to interview. They did interview 4 interested candidates, and recommendations were made. Angela Smallwood is going to be assigned here at the LMS campus, and both the SRO and St. Columban, and also that we work together with the city to be on our district safety committee and continue to move us forward to improve the safety of the school district. We're thrilled to have yet another partner and continue our collaboration with the city and the chief of police and the police department. That's just been an incredible addition. Again, I never want anyone to think that I'm slighting Fred Barnes in any way. We love Fred. We think he's a great employee, but he is no longer connected to Loveland Police Department. The ability to have somebody who is on the police department give us information quickly, accurately, and help us with families, help us support students outside of school when we have concerns, has just been, I couldn't put a cost to that of how supportive that's been. So we're thrilled to finish up that project and add the second SRO.
Any questions? Thanks for the explanation. Looks good. Can we vote on that?
Dr. LeBrens?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes. Motion carried. Now we move into discussion topics, and so I will turn the floor over, I think, to Mr. Hawley. Mr. Hawley. Okay.
Well, this will be a little bit more related to the resolutions that we're going to look at. So obviously, a little bit of background. We've been doing a lot of work with the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission to see if we can partner with them specifically. One other piece to that, so obviously we're looking at every avenue that we can potentially utilize to make this the most efficient and cost-effective process for our master plan. And so one of them is, as you guys are familiar, is we have a debt ceiling of 9% of what our assessed value is. Part of that conversation, and the reason why we have pushed back some of the voting, is to get some information from the Ohio Department of Education on whether or not we could be considered a special needs district. Not to go into all the details as to what that is specifically, but really basically is our debt ceiling increases. The debt ceiling sounds like a bad term. Basically, it just means that you can finance outside of the debt ceiling. It's just that's the amount of what a bond levy would be for. So there's alternative ways to finance a master plan, but the most effective and efficient manner to do it is in a bond levy. So to do special needs, it's 12%, but it's not 12% of your assessed value. It's actually, it's a spreadsheet. We could look at the spreadsheet if people are excited about it, but we don't have to look at spreadsheets. So ultimately, we barely missed that. But this is actually news since the last time we talked, was through some conversations with the Ohio Department of Education about increasing our debt limit with the 9% just based on what our bond retirement fund is. It actually led to a lot of other conversations. And basically, since we had just barely missed our special needs resolution, or the special needs cutoff barely, they were willing to allow us to argue our case as to why we should be. And that's actually been the last 2 or 3 days. So since late Friday. Been gathering a lot of information from Miami Township and the city of Loveland on permits and economic development in the city and in Miami Township to show that really what our assessed value has been doing, or that just the property values in general, is not reflective of what Loveland actually is. We're capturing, as everybody's aware, we're capturing some fairly bad years with property values decreasing in 2008, and a couple other years were small amounts. So anyways, so Mr. Conley is here with me as well, because he's been a part of this. It has not been formally approved, but it does look like something that we may be able to take advantage of as well, which is a huge opportunity and a huge win for the district. It will make whatever ask we do look at, it's the most economic way to do it so far with the community. So I'll talk about the specifics when we actually get to the resolutions. But I would say that's the biggest update since the last time we've spoken about building Tiger Nation.
Kevin and I have a joke that if we are not together for 2.5 hours, then something significant has changed in our work.
And it did.
And I say it jokingly, but I also say that this literally is how we are really trying to leave no stone unturned to make sure that we talk to anybody we can to make sure that Loveland's story is heard and we get the best, I don't want to say the best deal, but
Sure.
the best options for our taxpayers.
Yeah.
This is a big master plan. We believe that it meets the needs of our community. We believe that's what our students deserve and what our families want. It's still going to be a big ask, and so we want to make sure that that's the most economical ask that we can leverage. So it's constant updates and phone calls and have you thought of this and have you thought of that, and so yes, a lot changes if we do anything else.
Would you mind if I?
Yeah, please, absolutely, yeah.
Is it okay if I add something to the
Absolutely.
conversation, because these two are too modest? So part of what Kevin is describing is, we talked about it with the Finance Committee, there's a maximum amount that we can issue in traditional bonds. Traditional bonds have the lowest interest rate. What's lost in the conversation that this all really trickles down to how much taxpayers ultimately will pay to the district. There are some very esoteric aspects to how the state calculates how much money the school district can borrow using the least expensive. And between Amy and Kevin, they continue to pursue these avenues to see where there any other opportunities for us to increase how much we could do. So as of today, unofficially, but it seems to be the fact, it looks like we'll be able to improve our financing structure such that it would lower the overall interest cost about $3 million to do the financing for at least a portion of the plan. So, so again, they're being modest about this, but this is a $3 million win simply because they continue to pursue every possible avenue to increase what we can do on a bond financing perspective. So just want to make sure that we knew that was working in our favor. So the resolutions you have tonight actually tie into that whole process for us.
And just for our audience's sake, again, the increase what we're able to do, but decrease what we need to ask for in order to, that's what the increase is. It decreases the cost to the taxpayer.
That's correct, right. Simply because we can borrow using a less expensive borrowing mechanism.
Mm-hmm. And David obviously has more experience in this than I do, but I can tell you through this process, from what Ohio Department of Education has been saying, what Becky Princehorn, who's our bond counsel, is that this is a very rare case that they are willing to potentially accept something like this. And I think it's an extraordinary set of circumstances. Some of the ways that Loveland looks, just being in 3 counties and having different reappraisal and triennial updates, as I think has helped us in many ways, but they don't usually do this.
Thank you. Okay. There were a couple other things referenced in the discussion topic that are not necessarily tied to finance. Are those, has any of that come to be able to be discussed, or is that still pending?
So the Article 166 is the state's budget bill. And the governor is required to adopt a budget before the end of June. But it traditionally, in order to get that budget bill passed, ends up being, I believe, I think I sent you on Friday a link to one that was like 176 pages, something like that. But it ends up putting a lot of often some curriculum issues. Sometimes required CPR instruction goes in there. Lots of different things fall into that. So there was a webinar on Monday. Yes, is that just yesterday?
It was yesterday.
There was a webinar yesterday, but we couldn't access the PowerPoint. So I'm trying to read through people's notes to see about that. But one of the options, or one of the hopeful things that will happen in House Bill 166 will be a moratorium on storm shelters. As a requirement for new construction to build storm shelters to put square footage for storm shelters within new construction, and at a significant cost. So the ability to provide safe and secure environments for students without that square footage would be a significant cost savings to our master plan. I can't confirm that. I'm looking at the language right now, and I'm a little unclear about what that means, about whether it's approved, whether the bond's approved, whether the voters have approved. I'm a little unclear about that. So that hopefully will be a reduction to the master plan that's in there to comply. So I'll keep you updated on that. And then they have started the survey. The survey was, they did an RFP for the survey that was meant to decline jurors, and so I think they're this week.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there this week.
Should be out there this week.
Conducting the survey on the Grailville property to make sure that we have a clear deed to that property if we exercise our option to buy.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions? Then we would move into the treasurer's resolutions, I believe, and we would end up with an approval of, we have a resolution to approve 6-1 through 6-8. And so you have, all of those have been on our, correct, all of those have been on the agenda. And so those include minutes, they include from 2 meetings, financial reports, temporary appropriations, final appropriations, disposal of textbooks and inventory, payment in lieu of transportation, and 1-year contract with Forecast 5 for 5-year forecast services. Kevin, do you have discussion on any of those before
I mean, I'll go through them, sure.
Okay.
So quickly, just on 6.3, just want to reiterate what I put in my report is, if you're just looking at the percentages, I always budget towards what the 5-year forecast says. Since we approved a new forecast in May, those numbers are different now than what they were previously. So those percentages might look a little bit different, or if the numbers you see look a little bit different, that's the case as to why. One thing that's not going to show on here, but I just want to bring your attention to with the finances is the odd stuff typically happens at the end of the year. And so what happened in particular is we had duplicate checks go out to a vendor, and they happened to cash both of them before we could catch it and catch them from actually doing it. So they are going to refund those one of the checks. Unfortunately, it's not going to be until July. So if this was a typical month, we would get a refund. It's no big deal. It just takes care of itself. Since it's the end of the year, it's actually in not necessarily our general fund. It's what's called our 018 fund. It's the principals fund. And there's not enough cash currently in the account to take care of that check. So when we reconcile the check, the account will go negative even though we're going to receive a refund back. So these are the things that bring up some oddities at the end of the year when you're trying to close the books. So as you're familiar, people in the crowd may not be familiar, our fiscal year is July through June, so we can't end the year with a negative balance in an account. So what we actually have to do is we have to advance money from the general fund to that account to take care of that negative. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's not something that has to be formally approved by the board because it's basically a borrowing. It's not a transfer, so you're not giving money to the account. You're basically giving it to them until the money comes back. But just in case anything shows up, it's a little bit different. The reason why I wanted to bring it up as well is because it is a line item that does show up on the forecast. So you will see a line item on the forecast now that says advances out and advances in. And so they'll obviously match each other, but they'll be in 2 separate fiscal years. So fortunately, those are the ones that you get 5 days before the fiscal year ends. So just a little explanation. 6.4, just really quickly, so the appropriations is just, to me, it's just a fancy word of saying what our budget is. So we just approve temporary appropriations basically so that we can start the year. You don't have to do your permanent appropriations, which are not really all that permanent because you can update them throughout the year. But those aren't due until September. So it's just a resolution to approve basically some budget so we can start the year out. With 6.5, that is the final appropriation, so that is what we send to the county auditor. That is basically our end of the year budget. That's really as simple as it is, so it's just a budget portion. If you're just going back to what I was talking about with our financial packet, we're still on track basically to meet what we had expected from the 5-year forecast, so that's a good thing. So we are basically closing business for the end of the year at this point. 6.6 is just basically what we typically do with textbooks and inventory. So, yeah, that's all on those. Any questions?
And then the payment in lieu of transportation, is that?
I'm sorry, yes.
Is that for the previous year, or is that getting started already for next? Is that one that's?
That is for the previous year. It was just, it was a straggler.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's fine. I just checking. Any questions? I guess we should have a motion to approve treasurer items 6.1 through 6.8. Can we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Mrs. Washburn
Second.
and Mr. Porchan. He's being very quiet about it. But. Now, any questions about any of those items that weren't clear? Nope. All right, can we vote on those?
Dr. Lorenz?
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Motion carried. Now, in board docs, we have 2 more resolutions.
Correct.
And so the first one is a motion to approve the resolution for state consents.
Yeah, so let me just run over that. So just going to the previous conversation, the state consents portion is at 9% of the assessed valuation. That's really all it is. So if you look at our assessed valuation minus our outstanding debt that we currently have, which is very little, we basically have no debt outstanding. It'll be gone in just a few years. It's actually roughly about 71 million. And if you add in what our bond retirement fund is, and that's what sparked all this other conversation, gets us to that 73 million. So that is the state consents portion.
So that's the intent to borrow up to the 9%.
Correct. So it's not necessarily saying that the plan is going to be that amount, less or more. It's just basically saying this is the most that can be done on a bond levy.
Questions? Everybody's reading. All right? Everybody okay? All right, can we vote on that one?
Do we have a motion?
Oh, no, we didn't have a motion. Do we have a motion?
I move. I'll second.
Ms. Pettit and Mrs. Washburn. All right, I think we're ready to vote. We had our discussion ahead of time.
That's right. Sorry, Ms. Pettit,
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn,
Yes.
Mr. Portune.
Yes.
Dr. LeBrance.
Yes, motion carried. And then, the next one is for state consents and special needs.
So the reason that we're doing both is because we haven't officially received confirmation from the Ohio Department of Education. And honestly, that's why we waited as long as we could to put it on the agenda, just to see if we only had one to approve. Basically what this is, it looks very similar to the basic state consents, but if you look at section 3, it has the quotes, a special needs district. So the dollar amounts are different because of the valuation differences, but that's why we have 2 at this moment. So as we've discussed at this point, it looks like this will go through, but the deadline is July the 8th, so we just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
in the
and so then
meantime.
it's in section 4 that it says you can issue bond, where it says bonds in excess of the 9%.
Correct.
And would that necessarily be, you said it might not be like a straight 12%. There's a spreadsheet that tells you just exactly what it could be.
Yeah, it's 12% of the projected value of the district. Is it 5 years from now? Yeah, 5 years from now. So the 9% is an actual 9% of current assessed valuation. They do a calculation, and the 12% is based on a projected amount 5 years from now. So if you try to do 12% times our current assessed valuation, it will not come out
It
to
won't be that same number. Okay.
So that's a little bit of the confusion on that, but that's the word that you like to use, was esoteric. Yeah, right. Was one of the esoteric things, yeah.
And that would be the amount that could be financed through traditional bonds.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So just to clarify, this one, if the special needs approval comes through, would supersede
The
the
other one, yeah.
resolution you just approved.
That's-
So it's covered,
Yes.
comes through, it doesn't.
That's correct. Yeah, we wouldn't have put this on unless we had seen just the partnership with Ohio Department of Education, that they are even willing to have this conversation. So, yeah, very unique set of circumstances.
Okay. We didn't have a motion on
We
that
did, it's
either,
okay.
did we? I'm getting
That's okay.
befuddled
Discussing
here.
first.
I will move that we do the second special consents,
I'll second.
and Mr. Fortune seconded that.
Thank you.
Did we capture any questions or comments? All right, Mr. Hawley, can we vote?
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes. Motion carried. All right. Now, we move from there to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and I need to look at the new items. So we've moved now to that item, and there are some additions to what you received ahead of time. Student teacher mentors, looks like it's added. Music teacher. So Robin, do you have an additional report for us, or are we good?
The new LPS music teacher, so it's LES, but that is incorrect. It's
Okay.
LPS.
All right.
Allison Konsky, she has 9 years of experience, comes to us from Ross Elementary, and her husband is currently employed here as a social studies teacher. So she's a Loveland resident, and she actually worked under Jesse Bowles as he was her principal. So she was highly recommended by him. So we're happy to have her.
Okay.
The others are just additional supplemental positions, extended school year positions, mentors. We did add Alex McCoy, our new jazz guitar and assistant band director, to the supplementals for the jazz band director and assistant marching bands. Also added Allison into the elementary music directors, had a change of last name. There was an incorrect name for the varsity assistant football coach, Matt Walton, instead of Wayland, and the extended school year again.
Okay.
Any questions?
I think I saw, there were a couple of blanks in all those. It's not a big deal, but there were a couple of blanks. Some of them were marked to be determined, and some of them were just blank. And I was just making sure if there was a blank under a person's name, did that mean that person had both of those, or does it just mean we don't have that yet?
We don't have that yet.
Okay.
And the blanks were just, some of those were because they just were recently renegotiated.
Okay.
And they're new, we haven't identified those folks
Okay,
yet.
that's
They
fine.
will come forward.
I just want to make sure I was understanding the numbers of people, that's all.
So blank and the TBD are essentially the same.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm glad you're managing this scorecard, because it's quite a scorecard.
For one recommendation that came in for paraprofessional today, I just didn't want to add it because I haven't vetted through it, but I think then we're caught up with all of our hires.
Okay.
So let's just take a big breath and hope that stays. Everybody just say, oh, no. Yeah.
Yes.
No one move.
Well, and I was just going to suggest that if you have spaces in your batting order, apparently Dr. Kraus could fill in as a pitcher if you need. Be it
Saw that
in the
throw.
athletic supplementals, perhaps.
I do that free of charge.
That's a volunteer
That's
then,
a
right?
volunteer
Okay,
position.
all right. All right. So then we would need a motion to approve the resolutions of the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for, and then what we're going to need to do is, let me go back and look on board docs. I know on my paper copy, it says 1819, but we're talking about
1920.
1920. It actually says 1819 on board docs as well, in the heading. So they're all 1920, correct?
I missed
I mean,
that
sometimes we have,
Well, and some, yes, some of the ESY are
So-
turning actually now, so it's a combination.
right, so we'll just get that fixed for the minutes. Okay, any questions, discussion? Then we need a resolution, sorry. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself.
So moved.
Mrs. Washburn?
Second.
And Ms. Pettit. Now, any questions?
No.
All right, can we vote on that, Mr. Hawley?
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes. Motion carried. Next item is the exempt handbook for the 1920 school year. Board docs just kicked me out.
Oh, no.
How rude. All right, I'll do it by paper.
Do you want to do a motion first?
Sure. Why don't we do it the right way? Is there a motion to approve the exempt handbook?
I move.
Ms. Pettit
I'll second.
and Mrs. Washburn. Now, any discussion? You do have the draft for the changes that are there.
And really, the only change in that is the salary schedule at the very end is updated. Last year's expired, so we updated the salary schedule. That's the only change in the exempt.
Any questions? I see none. Mr. Hawley?
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Motion carried. And the next item, we would need a motion to approve the administrative handbook for the 1920 school year.
Move.
I think I heard
I'll
Mr.
move.
Fortune move, and
I'm
I'll
just gonna-
second that motion. Any questions about the administrative handbook? No? All right, Mr. Hawley?
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Fortune?
Yes.
Motion carried. And then we have, I think, one more, is that the last one, under this group, for the updated school calendar. Robin, you want to, I think you explained again in the report.
I want to say it in public, but you want to do a motion first?
I will move to.
Right. I just don't want you to get.
We have too many
I know.
motions, too many motions.
I don't usually have this many.
We motioned to second.
I'll second.
Mr. Portune, thank you.
Who is the first?
I was.
Mrs. Washburn.
Thank you.
All right, now,
I did explain it in the report, but I did just want to publicly say that this is the result of working with our teachers and principals and families. Actually, we had input from parents that having the early release times at the different schools on different days did create a little bit of chaos for families and childcare. And so through that process, we have aligned the end of our grading periods. We're all going to the quarter and semester, and trimesters have gone by the wayside, and we have eliminated the early release days. In order to do records, though, we have increased 2 additional days that students will not attend. Instead of being dismissed 2 hours early over the course of the year about 6 times, we just have 2 days at the end of each quarter added. So we have a full day off at the end of quarter 1. We always have at the end of the semester or quarter 2. And now we have an additional day at quarter 3. Half of that day is for professional development, and half of that day is for records and grading. So we're condensing it and making that impact less intrusive to families. All kids will be off on the same day, so maybe they can babysit for each other. We think it's a much better plan for everyone. And so we need to update our calendar to reflect that, so we can get that on the website and let parents know.
did you tell me that that calendar had not been put on the website yet? Or it had been?
It had been.
Had been?
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't have early release days listed on
Okay.
it, though.
That's,
but
I think
it
that's
did
what you had
not-
mentioned, that it
Yeah,
didn't.
but it did not indicate those days off.
days
either.
off.
And
Okay.
we will make sure that we get that in formal communication.
But it's not changing it from an early release to a day. Those early release days had not been identified yet.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Any other questions?
Graduation May 31st. I don't, it's not on here, so. Assuming that looks like a,
I don't think we usually put graduation. Do we usually put graduation on that calendar? I don't think
No.
on that one.
We'll find out.
I'm just guessing based on.
All right. Mr. Hawley, can we vote on that?
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Portune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes. Motion carried. Any other business that needs to come before this board? No? Nothing? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Well, you have to first.
I'll first it if
I
you
was
want.
waiting for you to first.
I know.
I would like to
First.
first it.
I'll second it then.
Okay. Ms. Pettit and Mrs. Washburn.
I don't.
I was just entertaining.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
she took that as you.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Our student graduation is actually on the 23rd.
Yes.
Lock it in.
That's
Yes,
early.
put it right in there. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned at 7?
It is early.
7:03.
7:03.
Yeah, not to be
Okay.
exact.
It's Memorial Day, the 24th.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Is it? Thank you.
The graduation's on the 24th.
23rd.
Memorial Day is the 25th, so it's Memorial Day weekend, like normal.
Memorial Day weekend again.
Not always.
What are we doing, guys?
It has been late.
Hey, thanks. Hesitated to even get that specific,
But they needed the back.
Exciting stuff.
Press over.
Thanks for coming.
Did you happen to notice at that 1 PM time? 1:3?
But, no, I don't have businesses.
Put it down as one.
Show up just in case, you never know. Any other questions?
I know that. That's why I wasn't asking you to explain it. I just wondered if you had it.
Okay. But I rarely went to the meeting. Really, the treasure on record was.
At 11 a.m.
11, okay.
Wow.
A Little Chaos is a good movie, by the
Yeah.
way, if you're interested. You said something about just a little chaos when, with the, it's a movie. Kate Winslet is in it. It's about the gardens at Versailles. She was a woman. I think you would enjoy it. It's called Little Chaos. Yes.
No, you don't have to.
Just because that's what you, yes, yes. Let me fix this thing.
Son has an interview tomorrow. Uh-oh. Is he not coming?
I mean, it's, I actually went out and
Okay,
interviewed.
make some sort of announcement. I doubt there were that many people
So I got to
who,
get most of my office stuff done, so I worked out for him.
Okay,
But I don't mind coming
I'll
down.
tell her tonight.
To drive usually when there's no.
Let him do it.
Okay.
Right, so the poker store is right there. And this is, this stuff is, I always worry about things that one
And I'll ask her to let me know if he did that.
says something.
Very important because you never know.
You don't want to burn your bridge.
He may
Buying it is a backstop.
to work there. Then.
Ugh, that's sad. Yeah.
Yeah,
So where did
by
he-
a day?
Where did he take the job at?
Menards.
So that's one of the main reasons I just show up is just, and I have a lot of treasure.
Fun, cashier or?
I honestly don't know. You know, they say, well, you know, just
Oh,
sit over in the
jeez.
corner. No, I just make things.
We haven't gotten there yet. I know, I'm
You know,
sure.
one of the few people.
They're having problems filling their seats.
They are.
Oh, wow. Everybody is.
So,
Yeah.
but they also said
It's just fascinating. Like,
for weekends it's free as well. So you don't do anything till after that. Training because he's
That's awesome. Good for him.
say I don't want to look at the road that much. We can bring pizzas home. Not for free, but just bring them
Well,
home.
yes.
Deliver them.
Yes, well, you know, you get one, or a small one for your meal, so.
Right. Actually, that sounded kind of good tonight.
I just talked to him, and he
Oh,
was
my
very sweet,
goodness.
very kind when he was saying, he's like, oh, shoot. And then I mentioned, so he doesn't like that our requirements are too high. Actually, he thinks the requirements are too high.
That's, I listened to most of that. That's what he was saying. I was like, and then.
Never run into somebody, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, why push them? And Never heard somebody do
It's the class requirement.
So there were about 60 of us that graduated that way. They understand all the issues. Programs, they hook them up directly to the 1819. Some of their guidance.
I've seen it before. He came there for
So I don't know how long.
All right, because I recognize him.
Yeah, I think there's ties.
He has too much time on his hands.
There's some people that like Todd that just have too much time on their hands and they just hang out looking for stuff to do.
Yep, exactly. It's great being retired. No, I'm not retired.
So much for the graduation department conversation.
You want to dumb them
Great time when I'm ready for it to turn right. It's like,
Well, we used to have a guy that used to come to our board meetings who had a horrific stutter.
well,
But he was really old school grandpa, and it was during the sex education era. Talk about the lesbians. He could. Kathy used to. Kathy was there at the board, and we'd all go, "Come on, you can get it out." And I mean, month after month after month, he'd
Torment.
Oh, no, not again. Mr. Ogden, still remember. I'm sure he's dead for 20 years.
I don't think anybody in my car.
After they finish work.
Yeah, I'm
You get about the hour? We should probably set Like, excuse me.
You folks, we could have go to church.
Hey. I don't want to. Oh, I'm gonna get on the road. I want to say goodbye to these guys. Thanks. Are you guys getting paid by the hour? Is that what's going Kevin, which way to the men's room before I head out? Is it that way? Or?
They're actually going back in that.
Oh, it should be inside the doorway?
Like literally, like the library.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Try that first.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll talk tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Sure. I'm retired. I do a lot of mentoring. I also moderate a CEO roundtable.
Yes, we do have.
Yeah, I just one of my roundtables. These are all. We call them G2. The G1 is Generation 1 family.
Because is that you typically go to?
But I said everyone.
Let's see, Pastor.
Roundtable is a field work.
You can't be part of
Somebody.
So our underwriters are gonna
provide personal guidance. I do that.
I worked with them in Collegeville. They're like to
Which is why I suggested we request something in writing so that we could, and, like, you know, saying, that's why I think you should request it in writing. It's like saying, if you have your question, you don't answer, just put yourself between you and the board. That's where I want to go. And if you want an answer from the board, request it. And then, I mean, that's why I think.
I'm recommending, you know,
Well, and then, and then you go down the path.
seniors,
California need 13, and that's why when they come here, Amy just said that.
We do have non-graduates. Based on the experience. A small number of non-graduates. Every school. Right, and he's saying, well, we shouldn't. We do, and that's part of the program.
No, that's through, my daughter was, like right now,
Good job. But again, thanks for never showing up, Eileen. Get out.
We have a high school.
Like 5, 6 years, 6 years ago.
So, I mean, I know it doesn't like, within the rules, but that is the reality of why it's going for starting to say that. David was so involved. Well, David actually just closed the deal
I mean, what's like,
yesterday. 5 years ago. Probably not that high, because it was still a low interest rate environment, but like, so we typically, if we're conservative, we factor in 5% rate. We're not factoring in 4.
everybody came on.
And we stair stepped it down. So, again, it is the goofy. But yeah, so the goofy thing is, it's like, you do improve it in November, you actually approve, the latest you can approve millage amount is July, not until November, and then you sell it.
I mean, it's not,
So, let's try to think about like the logic of that. What interest rates are going to be. But, people would argue why now. There actually is a really good. It's neat, but like, why big?
yeah.
You're getting so much money. I mean, I was just,
My wife and I are. One of the challenges brought up is just that. So having a cruise, you're working on sure who, you know, the final person who makes those connections.
Holy moly!
So I'm guessing that conversation with Cruz would really, probably rapid fire some really intentional places for you to help solve.
The money I spent was pay off, well, like tenfold.
I have 3 in my mortgage. So we just renovated our house, we just had it on, and everybody would be like, why don't you do a loan and wrap it in? Like, what's your current 3.
Never mind, last one. Never mind. We refinanced and we got a sweet deal. Around there. I'm not so sure.
My construction was 4.5, but I'll pay it off soon, but it was like, everybody wanted to wrap it.
Now you're seeing, I bet on the
No, we have to answer that.
15,
So how long ago did you do that?
Right, oh, this is approved, there's no basis proved by the recent decision in the legislature.
You know what's interesting is,
If you would.
I really enjoyed it. I shopped around and stuff. They just mortgage industry. It's like,
Our building goes in about 6 months, 5 months, and every 30 days, you gotta give me a finance. But you guys think I'm dead? Well, you may go,
I could speak from experience.
take out another 5.
All right, get at it.
Hey, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, great. Hey, good to see you. Absolutely. You didn't have to. I mean, I'm sure you have.
Here to answer questions if needed.
You live up this way, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I'm only like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm over off Deerfield over in Montgomery. quick. I knew with like that House bill coming through or potentially coming through and stuff like that, I especially wanted to be here in case anybody had like specific questions on what that means.
I keep forgetting that they might be removing that, and I keep wanting to look to see what those dollars are.
I pulled it up the other day. I can pull it up now if you want. It was it's either 5 or 6 million.
I was thinking potentially even more. So that's why. But I'm sure it's something around there. I mean, it's dollars. So
Right, because that could very well inform what that final. With stuff like that, I don't know. Like if you're already getting that bucket, you go for it, and then at the end, if that's contingency dollars or it goes back and pay off the loans, I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, our goal is really to minimize the millage as much as possible.
Right. So if you can shave off 5, 6, 7,
it's like I think we're just gonna do it.
I think you should. I was talking with my go-to structural engineer. He sits on the council with it's called the ICC, but they're the ones that write the storm shelter requirements. And apparently, in addition to Ohio doing whatever it's doing, the ICC, which is a national thing, they are currently reevaluating the wind zone map, which right now Ohio is in 250 mile an hour wind zone, which triggers the storm shelter for the school e-occupancy. And apparently they're currently looking at changing that map to eliminate like 90% of Ohio from that wind zone. So I'm wondering if this moratorium is to buy time until that map changes and then it'll just die.
Well, it's just the irony of that is like, I mean, I'm born and bred Ohio. I've lived here my whole life.